Hey, what's up you guys? Today is October 2nd and I'm making a little video to tell you about my Disney College Program Character Performer audition. So I auditioned in New York City at Pearl Studios on September 29th. I did not stay in New York City the night before, so I woke up at 3 a.m. to drive into the city, which I do not recommend. I got into the city around 7:50 a.m. and we waited around for a little bit. But I knew I wanted to be early. The website says not to get to the studio any earlier than 9:30, and around 8:45ish I went to go get Starbucks right next to the studio. In Starbucks I met 3 girls who were also going to the audition, and we got our drinks and decided to head up together. It was about 9:10 by the time we got into the audition studio, and it was already pretty packed. Again, they told us not to get there until 9:30, but we were numbers 71 through 75, I believe. So obviously, a lot of people were already there by 9:10. So the website said check-in would not begin until 10 a.m., but right around 9:35-ish, they took us into 3 separate studios to begin the check-in process. They gave us our numbers and had us pull out our phones so that we could sign in using the Google Doc. Here in this room, we were told by one of the casting directors that we were the second group of people to audition, so we had about 25-30 minutes to hang out, stretch, meet people, and just be nervous. So in this room, I met up with my soon-to-be roommate, Lindsay, which was super exciting to actually meet someone that I'm going to be living with in Disney. And I did realize something. I'm really tall compared to everyone else. And I'm like 5'7.5", so I guess I'm not like the tallest person, but I was one of the tallest girls in my room. And I had heard ahead of time that this could be a disadvantage to me, and I just told myself I was going to max it out, try my best, and if they don't want me because of my height, that's okay. So in about 25 minutes, our choreographer Sarah came into the room. And Sarah was a very bubbly, very lovely, incredible choreographer who just eased all of the tensions in the room. So I never felt during the audition that I was terrified to be in front of someone. Of course there were nerves, but I was more excited to learn from them. In this room we found out that this audition was going to be a little different than previous Disney College Program auditions. Prior to my audition, I watched a lot of videos on YouTube to see what it would be like, what the structure was, so it kind of made me a little nervous when I came in and found out it was different. But it wasn't majorly different. So the first thing we did was actually an animation. This animation was fairly easy. I had heard it before, and I was actually really excited for this. Our animation was that we had to pretend we were someone on top of the Festival of Fantasy float, so we couldn't be a princess, and they suggested we be a fur character. But we were a fur character on top of the Festival of Fantasy float, and we had to connect with people all the way down at the end of Main Street and make sure that the casting directors could tell that we were putting effort into our motions and that we were connecting with our character that we chose. I looked around the room and I noticed one thing. 95% of the girls around me were doing Minnie, and 95% of the boys around me were doing Mickey. Of course, that's still a valid way to go, but sometimes it's easier to think out of the box because you stand out more. I was one of the tallest girls in the room, and I decided I'm gonna be goofy. Okay, so instead of doing the Mickey ears and blowing kisses, I decided to add some humor into it. I did like hip swings, and I did my ears, and I was laughing a lot, and just overall I was trying to be big and trying to emote and trying to show the casting directors who I wanted to be. So we were told that the animation was going to be about 3 sets of 8, and then we were going to go into the next part. The next part was a march dance. You've probably heard of this before if you've watched any other videos. It's a very simple dance that incorporates 4 different moves: walking or marching, skipping, a jazz square, and pivot turns. You can look all of those up. They're fairly easy. Like our choreographer said a lot, if you could walk into the room, you can do the march dance. No dance experience required. You'll be okay. We had a little bit of time to work on it with the music playing. So she played the music and we did just the march dance. And then she played the music and we put the two together. So we started with our animation. So we were a character on the float, and then we went right into the march dance. So now was the time for us to actually perform this to the casting directors. The room I was in was a long rectangular studio, so the casting directors were sitting on one side, and we lined up in groups of 4 on the other side facing them. The groups went by numbers on your sticker, so again, I was number 72, but my room started at 50, so I was in the middle of the pack. So, we got lined up in our 4 lines, and we started to perform across the floor. Again, we started with our animation and went right into the dance 3 times in a row. This was a little nerve-wracking, but looking at the casting directors, they were smiling the whole time, they were nodding. I hadn't even realized that they were writing the whole time, taking notes. My biggest advice is to obviously try to make eye contact with the casting directors, but also be bigger than them and expand beyond them. I have color guard experience, so I'm used to like performing up and looking up. So I was nervous at first because the first time I did the combination, I was like, I didn't make any eye contact because I was way too out there. But then I realized if you find a happy medium of making contact and being able to exude that like outward presence is going to be a huge benefit. The biggest thing about this is honestly going full out. It doesn't matter if you're doing a jazz square in arms, you have to do it big hands, big eyes, smile, and not just like a smile. You don't want to be a pretty princess. You want to be so extra. I had an open mouth pretty much the whole time. You look like you're catching flies and like bugging out at the same time. That is correct. There were some people I met at the audition that were perfect for face characters in terms of their face. I would look at them and be like, you are Rapunzel, you are Ariel, like there's no doubt about it. You are the perfect height, your face is perfect, physique perfect. But when it came to animating and doing the first march, you could tell they had very little confidence and they would just smile and do the motions. And what took those other people apart was being extra. Being extra is not a bad thing at Disney auditions. Be so extra. They want someone who can be in a big costume and still exude the same performance that someone in a princess dress can exude. So we did that, and then we all sat down. Here, one of the casting directors explained the next step. He said, again, a lot of people come to every audition. They're only looking for around 120 to 150 spots for college program applicants, and it's really important that we don't give up on our dreams. Again, he said there were some height ranges they weren't looking for, some physiques they weren't looking for, and now is just not the time for every person to be moving on to the next round. He also said that he was going to call out numbers. If our number was called, to say here and stay, and if your number was not called, they were all set with you, you could go. It meant you were no longer in consideration for the character performer role for Spring or Spring Advantage 2018. From here, they started calling out the numbers, starting with 51, I believe, and as soon as they got to my number range and called 72, I was so excited. I had to keep myself like a little calm, but on the inside I was like shaking. And then they called my roommates' numbers. Out of my room, they ended up only keeping 17 of us, I believe. Boys, girls, some tall, some very short. And that's when I realized that I was the tallest girl left in our group. The casting director brought us into the next room over where we met with everyone who made the cut in the first room. So that was 2 of the 3 rooms together, and we started doing paperwork. The paperwork we filled out asked basic questions about the application, if we had any special skills or anything like that. From here, we were asked to stand up, take off our shoes, and get measured for our height. I got measured, and unlike previous auditions, or what I've heard from previous auditions, they did not tell us how tall we were. So we just got measured, they wrote it down, and then we went to the other casting director who took a picture of our face straight on and smiling. From here, we sat down, mingled a little bit, and everyone who made the cut in the third group was brought into our room. So we were all together for a very brief moment before they took the first half of everyone left over into another room to do round 2. Those of us that stayed in the room were told it would be about half an hour, but it ended up taking well over an hour for us to do anything. This was a great time for all of us to mingle and talk to each other and meet each other. Sarah, our choreographer, came back in and explained that round 2 was going to push us a little bit, and that we just had to remember to be confident, exude personality, and try to follow along as well as we could. So we started off with a longer animation. This animation was about a minute long, and it definitely took a little bit more thought than the last one. We were told to pick a villain, and we were making the monster. Sarah challenged us to really think outside the box and make it individual and change it up. So the cool part about the animation was about 30 seconds through it, we were supposed to turn into the monster we were creating. So this gave us the opportunity to show the casting directors that we can mold different situations, we can perform different types of characters, be evil, be good, be a monster. So this is where we had to really lay it all on the line. So I decided I wanted to be like a Cruella de Vil for cats. Sounds a little strange. But for me, I was like, I'm going to create a cat monster. So instead of just like taking things off my shelf and like pouring them in my thing, I would like take off my fingernails and put them in the brew, or like take some hair or something like that. Looking through all of my beakers, anytime I found like a beaker of something that I didn't need, I'd throw it over my shoulder. And then at one point I opened a beaker and I sniffed it to see if that's what I wanted before putting it in my cauldrons. After the 30 seconds, we turned into our monster, which again, I was like a cat monster. So I did a lot of like claws or like licking, cat things. After this long animation, we learned a harder dance. Dance experience isn't really needed here. There are some technical dance skills, but the choreographer does a really good job of breaking it down. So if you don't understand it, she'll break down the feet for you, she'll break down the arms for you, show you how to do both at the same time. You really don't have too much to worry about. There is a level of difficulty to this in terms of like timing and staying with rhythm, which is not the most important thing at the audition. The most important thing at the audition is performing it. So you're going to learn this dance that has everything from marches and jazz squares to batmas and pirouettes, but it's not as difficult as you think it'll be. Some people in the room you could tell had a lot of dance experience, which helped them, but other people you could tell who had less experience were also emoting and performing a little more. So you have to find that level where you're still being impressive and you're still showing the casting directors everything you have. So now it was time to actually perform everything for the casting directors. Instead of doing it in like the fours across the floor, we were actually taken into the hallway and brought into a completely different room in groups of 6 to do the dance and the longer animation just for our casting directors. But they had 3 people in the front, 3 people in the back, like a staggered block. Did the dance in 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and then we'd swap and do the dance again, and then we did the animation. So from here, they asked some people to stay specifically for face characters or if they needed to get another measurement, and that was that. That was the end of the audition, and we got a little piece of paper that said, keep checking your dashboard. We'll get emailed within 3 weeks, and they said we will get an email regardless if we get the position or if we don't get the position. So it'll be good to at least know and not be like left hanging. But overall, the experience was so good. I met so many great people. I made friends. It got me even more excited to work for Disney, just in general. And I would totally recommend for anyone who is even thinking about going to an audition just for the experience, go. So worth it. Incredible experience. You'll make friends you would never meet if it weren't for the audition, and it's just such a happy, warm, welcoming environment. For those of you who have not heard, I did get accepted to the Spring Disney College program. I made a video, but it was kind of a little too emotional for me, so it's on private right now. I might post it later on, but for now that's just something for me to watch and see the process of me waiting to get accepted. So if I don't get the character performer role, I will be working merchandise, which I'm really excited for, and I'm just excited for the next journey in my life. My check-in date is January 16th, and I'm in the spring program, not Spring Advantage, so I come back May 17th. Any questions about the character performer auditions, go ahead and leave them in the comment down below, or tweet them to me on Twitter, or anything. I'd be glad to help you. It's an experience you will not regret, so go for it. Stick your neck out there and just have a good time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a magical day. Bye!